You know, there's this funny thing about the Valthek Dominion. Well, funny if you weren't one of the poor bastards living under their rule. They had this whole philosophy about how violence was a mathematical problem, something you could calculate and control like interest rates or crop yields. The Valthek strategists would sit in their obsidian towers, running simulations, crunching numbers, and they genuinely believed they'd figured out the upper limits of rage. They had charts for it, actual charts with little colored bars showing the maximum fury index for every known species in the galaxy. The humans? Oh, they had humans on that chart too. Rated them somewhere between the Plenari, who mostly just got mildly irritated when you stole their lunch, and the Korthon, who'd write you a strongly worded complaint letter if you bombed their cities. The Valthek assigned humanity a fury coefficient of 0.47 on a scale where 1.0 meant you'd actually do something about being angry. I'm telling you this because what happened next is the kind of story that gets passed around in bars across 300 systems, the kind that makes even hardened mercenaries put down their drinks and lean in close. And I was there. I saw it. I documented the whole damn thing, because I'm a xenohistorian for the Galactic Archive, and at the time I thought I was just cataloging another minor colonial dispute. Spoiler alert, I was catastrophically wrong. It started on a nothing world called Kepler 4042b, which the humans had named New Providence, with that peculiar optimism they bring to everything. 70,000 colonists, mostly families, people who'd left Earth looking for a fresh start. They'd been there for 11 years. Terraforming, farming, building little towns with names like Hope's Landing and Second Chance. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where kids could play in the streets without worrying about anything, really. The Valthek showed up on a Tuesday. I only know it was Tuesday because one of the survivors, maintenance worker named Hugo Reeves, kept mentioning it in his testimony. It was a Tuesday, he'd say, over and over, like the day of the week mattered, like if it had been a Wednesday or a Friday, things might have gone differently. The Valthek battle group consisted of 6 cruisers, nothing fancy by their standards. They didn't even bother with an ultimatum. See, New Providence sat on top of what the Valthek called a strategic mineral deposit, basically, a bunch of rare earth elements worth approximately 400 billion credits on the galactic market. The humans had known the minerals were there, sure, but they'd signed treaties, filed claims, done everything by the book. The Valthek didn't care about books. Their first bombardment hit the main settlement at 0600 local time. Not a military strike, mind you. The humans didn't even have a military presence on New Providence, just a small colonial security force with crowd control equipment and stun batons. No, this was what the Valthek called Efficient Resource Acquisition Protocol, which is a fancy way of saying they murdered everyone in sight and planned to extract the minerals from the rubble. I arrived 3 days later with a Galactic Concord investigation team. We were supposed to document the incident, file a report, maybe slap the Valthek with some economic sanctions that would annoy them for approximately 15 minutes. Standard procedure for when a major power stepped on a minor colony. What we found? Look, I've been doing this job for 47 years. I've seen massacres, genocides, planetary bombings. You develop a kind of professional detachment, you know? You have to, or you'd go insane. But New Providence broke through that detachment like it wasn't even there. The Valthek had been thorough. The main settlement was just gone. Not damaged, not destroyed, just absent. Where 4,000 people had lived, there was a crater half a kilometer wide. The secondary settlements got hit with kinetic strikes that left nothing but impact glass and shadows. We found those shadows, by the way. Burn patterns on walls where people had been standing when the heat wave hit. They'd saved the outlying farms for last, probably to make sure nobody escaped to spread the word too quickly. Those attacks had been personal, boots on the ground. Valthek shock troops going door to door. We found entire families in their homes, gunned down while they ate breakfast or tried to hide their children. 70,000 colonists. 70,000. The Valthek left exactly 217 survivors. And here's the thing that still keeps me up at night. I don't think those survivors were accidental. I think the Valthek left them alive on purpose as witnesses, as a message. This is what happens when you're on resources we want. This is what your 0.47 Fury coefficient buys you. Absolutely nothing. Among those survivors was a woman named Dakota Singh, a school teacher who'd been on a field trip with her students in the Northern Highlands when the attack hit. She watched the bombardment from 15 kilometers away, watched the mushroom clouds rise over everything she knew. When the Valthek troops swept through the highlands, she hid 37 children in a cave system, kept them quiet for 6 days while the murderers searched. Every single one of those kids lived. Dakota Singh made sure of that. When our investigation team pulled her out of that cave, covered in rock dust and her own students' tears, she looked at me with eyes that had seen something fundamental break in the universe. "They're going to pay for this," she said. Not asked. Not hoped. Said it like it was a law of physics. I nodded, gave her the standard investigator response. The Galactic Concord will pursue all available legal remedies. Justice will be served through proper channels. She laughed. Actually laughed. It was the saddest sound I've ever heard. "No," she said. "You don't understand. I don't mean your justice. I mean ours." I filed my report. 70,000 dead, genocide by any definition, recommended immediate sanctions and a tribunal. You know what the Galactic Concord did? They issued a formal statement of concern. They fined the Valthek Dominion 0.001% of their quarterly GDP, which the Valthek paid without even bothering to contest. They called it unfortunate collateral damage in a resource dispute. The human government on Earth requested a meeting with the Valthek ambassador. They wanted to negotiate, to talk, to find some kind of peaceful resolution. The Valthek ambassador, a smug piece of work named Krell Voth, actually smiled during that meeting. I saw the recordings. He sat there in the human council chamber and explained, very patiently, that humanity needed to understand their place in the galactic hierarchy. That New Providence was simply a correction to an inefficient resource allocation. "We harbor no ill will toward humanity," he said, and I swear he was trying not to laugh. "But you must recognize that your species lacks the strength to contest decisions made by your betters. We've run the calculations. We know precisely how far you can be pushed before you break, and you're nowhere near that threshold." The human delegates sat there and took it. They nodded. They agreed to discuss compensation for the regrettable losses. They shook Krell Voth's hand with gritted teeth and painted on diplomatic smiles. The Valthek thought they'd won. They thought they understood the game. They had no idea they'd just made the worst mistake in their civilization's history. You see, here's what the Valthek didn't understand about humans, what none of us really understood back then. They'd studied human history, sure. They knew about Earth's wars, the violence, the capacity for destruction, but they'd made a critical error in their analysis. They'd looked at human conflicts and seen restraint, rules of engagement, Geneva Conventions, international laws about warfare. They'd interpreted that restraint as weakness, as evidence of limited fury. They didn't realize that restraint isn't weakness. It's a choice. It's a very deliberate, very choice that humans make every single day, not to unleash the full measure of what they're capable of. And the thing about choices, they can be unmade. 3 weeks after New Providence, the human government made an announcement. They were withdrawing from the Galactic Concord, effective immediately. They were also withdrawing every human citizen from every world in the galaxy, recalling every ship, every diplomat, every merchant. The whole species was going home. The galaxy breathed a sigh of relief. Good riddance to the weak little primates who couldn't handle real politics. The Valthek celebrated, actually had a parade about their successful resource acquisition. 6 months later, a single human ship appeared at the edge of Valthek space. Not a warship. The humans didn't have warships. Not really. Just a civilian vessel. A mining ship called the Prometheus, captained by a guy named Felix Chen. The Valthek System Defense Force hailed it, told it to turn around. Felix Chen responded with 2 words. "Remember Providence." Then the Prometheus rammed itself at 0.98 light speed into Valthek Prime's largest moon. Let me explain something about relativistic impacts. When you accelerate even a small mass to near light speed, it carries kinetic energy that makes nuclear weapons look like party poppers. The Prometheus massed about 50,000 tons. When it hit that moon, it released energy equivalent to approximately 50,000 megatons. The moon shattered, not cracked, shattered. Billions of tons of debris, all of it still carrying tremendous velocity, all of it raining down on Valthek Prime like the fist of an angry god. 2.3 billion Valthek died in the next 48 hours. Their homeworld's atmosphere turned into a toxic soup of pulverized moon rock. Their oceans flash-boiled. Their cities became tombs, and that was just the opening move. Because see, while the galaxy had been patting itself on the back for putting the humans in their place, humanity had been busy. They'd taken those 6 months of isolation and weaponized their entire civilization. Every mining ship, every cargo hauler, every civilian vessel got retrofitted with one purpose: relativistic impact. The humans called it the Providence Protocol. We call it the day the galaxy learned what fury really looked like. The second wave hit 72 hours after the Prometheus turned Valthek Prime into a graveyard. 30 human ships, all civilian vessels with names like Second Chance and New Dawn and Remember Them, appeared simultaneously across Valthek space, each one locked onto a major population center or industrial hub. Each one transmitted the same message: for New Providence. But Valthek tried to stop them. Of course they tried. They had the most sophisticated military in the galaxy, point defense systems that could track and destroy thousands of targets simultaneously, energy shields that could withstand direct nuclear strikes. Their strategists scrambled, running their precious calculations, trying to find the optimal response. Here's the thing about math, though. It stops mattering when someone rewrites the equation. Those human ships didn't follow attack patterns. They didn't maneuver or try evasive action. They just came. Straight lines at relativistic speeds, no deviation, no hesitation. The Valthek shot down maybe 60% of them. The other 40%, well, each one that got through deleted a city and everyone in it from existence. In 5 days, the Valthek Dominion lost 18 colony worlds, 47 major installations, and somewhere north of 30 billion citizens. Their military infrastructure was crippled. Their government collapsed into chaos. The species that had spent centuries calculating the fury coefficients of every race in the galaxy suddenly discovered that some things can't be quantified. I watched it happen from the safety of a Galactic archive observation post, documenting everything because that's what I do. That's what I've always done. And I kept thinking about that chart, that stupid chart with its little colored bars. The humans had been rated at 0.47. The Valthek had been so confident in their data, they'd measured anger. They'd quantified rage. What they hadn't accounted for was grief weaponized by genius. Mourning transformed into mathematics, sorrow given purpose and velocity, and an unstoppable trajectory. The Galactic Concord finally woke up when the third wave was loading into launch positions. They sent every diplomat they had, every negotiator, every species leader who could speak coherently. They assembled an emergency council and sent a priority transmission to Earth. The human response came from someone I'd never heard of before, a woman named Admiral Yuki Tanaka. Turns out the humans had been building a military the whole time they'd been going home. Funny how that works. Admiral Tanaka appeared on every screen in the galaxy, and I remember her face calm, composed, empty of everything except purpose. The Galactic Concord has asked us to cease hostilities, she said. They've promised tribunals, sanctions, justice through proper channels. They've reminded us that we're bound by civilized laws, by the codes that separate sapient beings from animals. She paused, and something like a smile touched her lips. Not a happy smile. Not remotely. We followed those laws once. We believed in those codes. We brought our families to New Providence and planted gardens and built schools because we thought the galaxy had rules that mattered. The Valthek taught us differently. They taught us that laws only matter if someone enforces them, that codes of conduct are just suggestions, that civilization is a pleasant fiction maintained only until it becomes inconvenient. Another pause. Longer this time. So here are our terms. Every Valthek world, every station, every ship surrenders immediately. Their government dissolves. Their military disbands. They evacuate their territory and accept permanent exile to a single designated world. Not even a good one, just somewhere they can survive if they work hard enough. They get to live, but they lose everything else. Their empire, their pride, their place in the galaxy. She leaned closer to the camera, and I swear the temperature dropped across 300 systems. Or we continue. Wave 4 is ready. Wave 5 through 20 are loading. We have mapped every Valthek holding in the galaxy. We have calculated trajectories to every population center. We will not negotiate. We will not show mercy. We will not stop until either our terms are met or the Valthek cease to exist as a species. Your choice. You have 6 hours. The transmission ended. The galaxy went silent. I mean that literally for approximately 10 minutes. There was no interstellar communication at all. Everyone was too shocked to speak. The humans, the weak little primates with their 0.47 Fury coefficient, had just threatened to commit genocide against one of the most powerful civilizations in known space. And they had the means to do it. The Valthek leadership, what remained of it, tried to rally support. They sent desperate pleas to their allies, reminding everyone of trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. They argued that if the humans could do this to them, they could do it to anyone. They insisted that the galaxy needed to stand together against this threat. You know how many species answered their call? 0. Not a single one. Because every government in the galaxy was suddenly doing their own calculations, suddenly checking their own charts about human capabilities, suddenly realizing that they'd all made the same catastrophic error. They'd mistaken restraint for inability. They'd seen kindness and assumed weakness. They'd watched humans follow the rules and never considered what would happen when the rules failed. 4 hours into the deadline, the Valthek transmitted their unconditional surrender. I documented the evacuation personally. 43 billion Valthek abandoning everything they'd built over 6,000 years of civilization. They were allowed to take personal belongings, family heirlooms, whatever they could carry. Everything else stayed behind, their worlds, their cities, their monuments to galactic dominance. All of it left empty and silent. The humans designated a planet called Penance as the Valthek's new home. It's not a bad world, actually. Breathable atmosphere, adequate resources capable of supporting their population if they work for it. But it's one planet. Just one. The species that had ruled 700 worlds and thought themselves invincible got reduced to a single marble of rock orbiting a forgettable star. Hugo Reeves, that maintenance worker from New Providence who kept talking about Tuesdays. He was there when the last Valthek evacuated their homeworld. I interviewed him afterward, asked him how it felt to see his enemy brought so low. Empty, he said. It feels empty. My wife died on Providence. My kids died there. My neighbors, my friends, everyone I knew. 70,000 people gone in a morning. Watching the Valthek lose everything doesn't bring them back. It doesn't fill the hole they left. He looked at me with eyes that had aged 1,000 years in a few months. But it matters. It has to matter. Because if it doesn't, if we just accepted their statement of concern and their meaningless fines, then my family died for nothing. They become a footnote, collateral damage, acceptable losses in someone else's resource acquisition. This way, everyone remembers. The whole galaxy remembers that you can't just murder us and expect us to smile and take it. Dakota Singh, the teacher who saved those 37 children, she said something similar when I tracked her down. She was working on rebuilding efforts. The humans had started resettling New Providence, refusing to let the Valthek's crime erase the colony from existence. People keep asking me if I feel guilty, she told me while planting trees where a school had once stood. They say the human response was disproportionate, that billions died for thousands. They think I should be haunted by all those Valthek deaths. She pressed soil around a sapling, her hand steady. I am haunted, every day, but not by them. I'm haunted by my students' faces when they asked me why the bad people hurt their parents. I'm haunted by the smell of smoke and burned flesh that I couldn't wash out of my hair for weeks. I'm haunted by the fact that 70,000 people woke up one Tuesday morning thinking they were safe, thinking the galaxy had rules, thinking their humanity would protect them. She stood up, brushed dirt from her knees. The Valthek made a calculation. They decided our lives were worth less than their profits. They decided they could murder us without consequence. Well, they were wrong, and now everyone knows exactly how wrong they were. That's not something I'm going to apologize for. Admiral Tanaka retired after the Valthek surrendered. She gave one final speech, broadcast across human space, but heard by everyone. "We didn't want this," she said. "We wanted to be farmers and teachers and engineers. We wanted to raise our children on new worlds and build something beautiful. The galaxy took that from us. The galaxy taught us that kindness is seen as weakness, that mercy is interpreted as inability, that following the rules just makes you a victim." She looked tired, older than her years, but unbroken. So we learned. We adapted. We became what we needed to become to survive in a galaxy that only respects strength. But let me be clear. This was not humanity embracing violence. This was humanity understanding, finally and forever, that sometimes the only way to protect peace is to make war so terrible that no one dares disturb it. The humans released all their Providence protocol vessels to galactic inspection after that. They wanted everyone to see, to understand what they'd built in those 6 months of isolation. Hundreds of ships, each one a relativistic weapon, each one capable of deleting a planet from existence. They didn't dismantle them. They just parked them in orbit around Earth, a silent reminder. The Galactic Concord rewrote their entire legal framework within a year. Genocide became not just illegal but a species-level extinction offense, enforceable by any member state. Resource disputes got mandatory arbitration with actual teeth. The concept of acceptable collateral damage was struck from every military manual in the galaxy. Funny how that works. 70,000 humans died, and the galaxy shrugged. 40 billion Valthek died, and suddenly, everyone discovered morality. These days I teach Xeno-history at the Galactic Archive University. My most popular course is called The Providence Paradigm, When Mathematics Meets Fury. Students come from every species, every world, all of them wanting to understand how the galaxy changed in those few terrible weeks. I always start the same way. I show them that old Valthek chart, the one with the Fury coryphers and little colored bars. I point to humanity's rating of 0.47. This, I tell them, is what happens when you confuse the decision not to hurt you with the inability to do so. The humans could have always done what they did. They chose not to. Every single day, they chose restraint over destruction, peace over vengeance, civilization over chaos. I let that sink in for a moment, until they didn't, until someone made them choose differently. And the galaxy learned a lesson that can never be unlearned. Some species don't have a fury limit. Some species have a fury threshold. And if you're stupid enough to cross it, you don't get a second chance. Last month, I visited New Providence again. The colony is thriving now. 200,000 humans, rebuilt and growing. There's a memorial in the center of the main settlement. A black granite wall with 70,000 names carved into it. At the top, a single line they thought we would forget. They were wrong. Dakota Sin was there with a group of students, teaching them about agriculture and terraforming. The same kids she saved from that cave are teenagers now, helping plant crops and build homes. She saw me watching and walked over. That same steady competence I remembered from the worst day of her life. "You're wondering if it was worth it," she said. "Not a question," I nodded. 40 billion lives for 70,000. The math is hard to justify. She looked at her students, at the growing settlement, at the evidence that humanity refused to be erased. "You're asking the wrong question," she said. "It's not about whether revenge was worth it. It's about what kind of galaxy we want to live in. One where might makes right, and the strong can murder the weak without consequence. Or one where there are actual costs to atrocity, where civilization means something more than just a word. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The Valthek made their choice. They chose the first galaxy. So we built the second one. We made it so expensive to commit genocide that no one will ever choose it again. Yeah, 40 billion died. But how many didn't die because every species in the galaxy now knows exactly what happens if they try what the Valthek tried? I didn't have an answer for that. I still don't. But I know one thing for certain. Humanity's fury coefficient was never 0.47. It was whatever on any scale the Valthek could measure. Because you can't quantify the rage of a species that loved harder than most, that built gardens on alien worlds and dreamed of peaceful tomorrows. You can only witness what happens when that love turns to ash and those dreams burn away, leaving behind something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that remembered every name on that wall and made sure everyone else would remember them too. The price for New Providence was paid in full. The galaxy just had to learn that some debts are settled not in credits or apologies, but in the complete and utter destruction of everything the debtor held dear. And you know what the really terrifying part is? The humans haven't forgotten how to do it. Those ships still orbit Earth. Still ready. Still capable. The Providence Protocol isn't dismantled. It's just sleeping. And every species in the galaxy knows that if anyone ever makes the humans choose fury over restraint again, they won't calculate or negotiate or give 6 hours to surrender. They'll just remember what civilization cost them once before, and decide it's not worth the price a second time. Sleep well, galaxy. The humans are peaceful now, but never, ever mistake that peace for weakness again.